There's actually no special people. Like there's no one is more deserving of
You're not
success.
special.
A lot of the people that I see are at the top of their game or seem to have capacity to hold a lot, they do have strong boundaries. I don't really believe in that overnight success. Wow, that's the stuff we often forget about when we're actually just consuming a piece of content online and thinking that they're holding so much or able to do so much.
Hey friends, before we get into this episode, I am going to ask for your help. We are on a mission to hit 4,000 subscribers in the next 30 days. I've got a stat here. 97% of you aren't actually subscribed. That's crazy. So for every follow, like, share, subscribe, that all really helps us to continue to get the guests that you want. So can you please join me in becoming one of the 4K crew? That would help me and I would love it so much. Madelyn, how do you feel about being in that chair, not this chair?
I know, it feels so strange. I'm not going to lie, but I'm really excited.
You're so used to being the host.
I am. So it's definitely roles are reversed right now.
I love
but
this
I'm
for
really
us.
excited to be here. So
I'm going to take
thank you for having me.
Hopefully well outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, let's do it.
No pressure, but I tend to make people cry, but that's fine. Your podcast, The Healthy Hustlers, how long has it been now that you've been podcasting?
It's going to be 7 years in June.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And when I say that out loud, it feels so surreal to me because it's something that, I don't know, when you've been doing something that long, and I think prior to that, I was one of those people that were in jobs for like 2 or 3 years and then had that itch and I was always like, okay, I need something more, I need something new. And so when I started The Healthy Hustlers, one of my fears was, I don't want this to just be like a thing that I do for a little while. And now I'm like, oh, okay, this is a thing that I've done for a really long while.
What motivated you to start podcasting in the first place?
Well, I was actually working in the corporate world. So I was working for a global fashion retailer, so very fast-paced environment. And in that period, I was actually getting super burnt out. So I discovered that I really loved my career. Like I love the fast-paced environment. I loved being out of my comfort zone, but it was coming with a lot of burnout. And so during that period, I started to get really curious about a lot of people around me who were highly successful people, you know, that were kind of at the top of their game. And I used to just think, how are they doing so much more than me, but never seem to be burnt out? Like I'd go away on a work trip and then I'd need like 3 days in bed after it. And so I just got super curious and it really came down to their healthy habits and their lifestyle and the fact that they really did prioritize their health and their wellness. So I started to inject a lot of that into my own life and surprise, surprise, it was, you know, the results were really great and I felt really amazing. And so I changed a few things in my lifestyle. At that point, I left the job. I started a new job, which gave me a bit more space and I was listening to a lot of podcasts. And at that stage, it was really just American podcasts. There was a few Australian ones, but no one really doing it. I think it was just a combination of actually creating space, which was me walking to work, no headphones in, no music, just like stillness and being with my thoughts and being able to like tune into my intuition. And that allowed the idea for The Healthy Hustlers to come in, and I think because I was listening to podcasts at that stage, I was like, how do I share these healthy habits, these like stories of people at the top of their game who are doing it so well so that we can educate people just like I was who were in the corporate world on the hamster wheel, like living the hustle. And so podcasting seemed like the natural kind of fit. So it was, I don't know, a moment in time, I guess, that just served me really well.
And you've got to interview a lot of people. You've done really well and had some really amazing guests. Yeah. Is there one theme across everyone that you've noticed? Like, what are they doing right that we need to know about?
I think, one, they're investing in their health and their wellness and especially their mindset. I think that's probably really came to the forefront for me was that there's actually no special people. Like there's no one is more deserving of
You're
success.
Not special.
Yeah, no, none of them are special.
Right.
It's just like, one, they really prioritize their mindset. So they, you know, believe they're capable enough, they're worthy enough, you know, they keep going time and time again after knockdowns. But they also lead a really healthy lifestyle, which enables them to be in that hustle in a much more I don't really like the word balanced, but in a more balanced and grounded way.
Fast forward now.
Yes.
You've got a little one as well to throw in the mix.
Yeah, 2 little ones actually.
Have you got two? When did I miss the second one?
2 little ones now.
That's terrible. Hang on, how old are they then?
Georgia, who I worked with you for my pregnancy with Georgia, she will be 6 in September.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Rocco is my second, so he'll be 3.
I see, I missed that altogether.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
A lot of people are so surprised when I say I have a second because I don't share much about my kids anymore online and that as well, which has been a really conscious decision. But I think sometimes, for a while I was in that mum space, but it just wasn't really serving me sharing that online. So
Fair. It is a hard thing to decide. I think we were so well into it. I'm like, the kids are everywhere. It's too late to take them take them off. But my husband doesn't feature that much, and that's conscious.
And your children are at an age where they can understand the weight of what comes with online. Mine are still so young, and I believe that everyone makes the right decision for them. For me, it was just a very intuitive thing with my daughter starting school, and I just kept feeling like, oh, this doesn't feel right anymore. And it's interesting though, they had a school photo for the local newspaper. We live in a smaller town, and she came home and she's like, Mum, I wasn't allowed in the photo today. And because I had ticked no to the marketing and social media. And it was a really interesting conversation with a 5-year-old to try to explain to her. And I was like, darling, when you get to grades 5 and 6, if you want to be on like billboards in the newspaper, you can make that decision. She's like, I want to, Mum, I want to.
How adorable though. Well, my children think they're rock stars. So there's that as well.
She would too.
And Olivia will say things like, let me just do this, Mum. Anything I create will perform better than what you create anyway.
And how's her latest reel on your
my
Instagram?
goodness.
Oh, so good. She's such a natural.
She creates a lot that don't actually ever get published. There's some pretty funny ones.
Yeah.
For anyone that's listening that hasn't seen, Olivia unboxed a package, a PR
it was
package.
So good. She was
but she
so natural.
pretty much does that all the time. That's one of the first ones I've shared.
Yeah, wow.
But she loves to get in there and unbox it. They're so used to seeing people doing this though,
Totally.
right?
And my daughter now walks around with a phone around the house and she's like, hi, everyone, and like films, and she films herself. And my husband gets a bit funny about it, but I'm like, I'm so fine with that. Like that's, for me, I look at that as like creativity and self-expression. It's more, I think the decision for me with the social online was just more like when they can choose that they want to do that or they understand a bit more of the weight of how many people are looking or seeing things. I remember also I had this moment where I Googled my own name and all of these photos from like my uni days when I lived in America came up on Google and I was like mortified. And I thought, oh my goodness, things like stay there.
They're there forever. Whatever you post is out there forever.
Yes, totally.
I didn't have to worry about this growing up.
Either did I really for a lot of it. Like this is still quite new for me. So I think I'm just kind of navigating it the best that I can at the moment.
Let's go back to mindset.
Yes.
Because I 100% agree with you. I actually think that those that are seemingly doing it all, it's not even exhausting to them somehow. What have you observed with that?
One, they have really strong boundaries, really solid like non-negotiables. So a lot of the people that I see that I guess are at the top of their game or, seem to have capacity to hold a lot, they do have strong boundaries. If that's things like no social media in the morning, not scrolling online, if it's, saying no to a lot of things, even, ones that I've become close to now and I'll send a text message and I'll notice that their phone's got the do not disturb or the notifications off. And I'm like, I actually think it's a lot of those things that really help people block out the noise of the external world or what's around them and actually allows them to be really laser focused on what it is that they're creating, which, then becomes so intentional with what they're doing.
I think it's important. It's hard initially too, I think, because
it is.
What you see and what's actually happening are two different things.
Totally.
Even before we started recording, you were like, oh, how are you doing all of the things?
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me that question.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's as simple as that. Like, I'm not doing it. There's a whole team behind everything that we do.
Yes.
And I think that you probably notice a lot of these people that you're talking about, they're definitely not doing it on their own.
No.
However, it probably looks like they are.
Absolutely.
And then therefore, comparisonitis is not a good idea ever. But that's probably what's happening for a lot of people. They didn't just wake up overnight and that be their reality either.
Yes, exactly. I don't really believe in that overnight success. Like anyone that you're looking at their chapter 30 or 40 or 50, there's been so many chapters before that they've actually worked so hard that we haven't seen the behind the scenes of. And I think, even thinking back to, some people that have been on the podcast, like they'll talk about the early years where they'd get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and film social media content before going to a full-time job and then spend weekends editing. And I'm like, wow, that's the stuff we often forget about when we're actually just consuming a piece of content online and thinking that, they're holding so much or able to do so much.
It's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yes, totally. We're also seeing such a small percentage of someone's life.
It's a real highlight reel. We say this all the time, but
Yeah.
it's so true. And I still have conversations with people that will say, oh gosh, I saw this and this and this, and you're really like,
Yeah.
it looks like you're really killing it. It's like, yeah, but there's,
Yeah.
there's bad days,
Totally.
moments that are horrendous. There's a lot of mistakes being made.
Yeah. It's funny because just before I walked in here, I had a message from someone saying like, look like you're killing it in business. And it's like what people see at the moment is that I'm showing up and I don't know, am dressed nice and those sort of things. But they also don't see the little internal things that I'm having to consciously do every day, like get up before the kids and really focusing on my mindset, invest in my mindset, like spending money on working with people to help me get better and move the needle on where I want to go. So there's all of those behind the scenes.
I do love that, because how important is that to have people there coaching, supporting, teaching, managing? We forget about that. That gets lost somewhere.
Yeah.
Like investing in people to help us helps tremendously. But I feel like as we get older, we can easily forget that.
It's interesting that you say that because so I have a real belief that the universe is always like communicating with us, and I'm very spiritual. So I always take things as like signs or communication. And at the end of last year, there was a quote, I think one of the first people I saw it with originally was Lewis Howes, and it was around like it was around nurturing a garden. So it was like if you chase butterflies, they fly away. But if you nurture a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come. And he spoke about it in the concept of like if we're nurturing our internal world, then opportunities and the right people will come. And then there was a podcaster who did a snippet on it as well, and that same take. All of a sudden, this quote or this philosophy, I guess, was like everywhere in front of me. And I was like, it was like mid-December. And I was like, okay, this is my sign or my message from the universe that 2025 needs to be actually just about nurturing the internal world. No more chasing, just actually aligning my energy with what it is I want to call in. And so that shift in itself has like, I can't do that. I know I can't do that by myself. And I'm in a space now where I coach a lot of podcasters and other people that are wanting to grow their business. So I was like, if people are investing in me, I need to continue to invest in myself because they need the best of me. And so, I'm so big on environments and who you surround yourself with. And this year, I've really gone about really investing in myself more from a wellness and I guess spiritual internal world perspective. So I've just signed up to go on my first retreat, which I'm really excited about.
Exciting.
And been working with a therapist on like limiting beliefs and reprogramming a lot of that stuff. So I guess less strategy and business and more how can I live up to my full potential, but then having the right people around me to be able to then turn that potential and those ideas into actual action and work. So a team that's supporting me.
Many years ago, I had a business coach and she was amazing.
Yeah.
But I one day had this realization that she was telling me what she thought I should do, but she'd not actually done it.
That's a big one, isn't it?
Right? I was like, hang on, where are the people that have done what I want to do? That's who I need to go and spend my time with.
Yes.
That's who I need to go and put myself in the middle of if I want to be that person.
Definitely.
And I wonder how often we're listening to the wrong person, or we're taking advice maybe from someone who thinks it's a good idea but actually hasn't
walked the path.
Right? And I want to spend time with people that have stuffed up, that have
Yes.
made epic mistakes and really learnt from that. I really think that, the shininess is not really part of what helps us grow.
So true. And a big thing for me actually last year when I actually invested in a big business coach for the first time, and it was a large investment and it was a great investment, but a big thing for me was that embodiment piece. So it was like, I want someone who has actually done what I'm desiring to do, someone that's walked that path that can show me the right way. And if that means paying more money, then that's what I'm almost willing to do. And I think that was really integral for me because I've moved into coaching, but for podcasters, and I'm like, I never want to teach something that I haven't perfected and done myself first. And so, yeah, that embodiment piece is a really big thing. And even now, shifting away from the business and more into, I guess, personal development and my wellness and internal world, that philosophy still is so true to me. I'm like, I want to be working with the women who are the embodiment of their work, who are, doing that first and foremost for themselves.
With creating a podcast comes creating a community or curating a community. Yeah. It's a weird one though, right? Because it's not really two-way. But how important has the community been for you in terms of creating Healthy Hustlers?
I think it's an interesting one, community, because if I'm really honest, like I'm not sure I've done the best job that I could with nurturing that and maybe building it. And that came down to, I started it, and then in the last, 5 years, I've also grown and birthed and raised 2 young children. So the content has always been the first priority, and then the communities kind of come second. And this year I really wanted to have a bigger focus on nurturing the community side of things from the people that listen. It's been so important to me because it's like people have seen so much, I guess, evolution, so many different seasons of my life. And they've been on that journey with me. And sometimes they've been my safest space to be able to just have people that feel like they see you and they know you and they like celebrate your growth, or they'll say, oh, I remember when you used to talk about this and now like, look where you are. And so selfishly, it's almost been this beautiful thing for me that's actually kept me going and has allowed me to do this for 7 years. So this year I really want to be giving back to my community on a deeper level, like more connection, more in-person, really beautiful experiences where we all get to come together and celebrate each other, versus it kind of more being that online space. But I think community is so important. Definitely moving more into motherhood, like community. I just realized how important community was. And I grew up in a really small country town where you walk down the street and everyone knew your name. And, it's like, hey, how's so-and-so? My mum was a local hairdresser, so we knew everyone. And I think when you're raised in that and it's just like your natural environment, you don't second guess it. And I remember when I moved to Melbourne and we lived in an apartment building, and I would get in the lift with people that we were sharing like an apartment building with, and they wouldn't acknowledge you. And I found it the most foreign concept that someone would not say hello to me, and my husband would be like, get over it. Like they're coming home from a visit. I'm like, but we share a space we share a building, we can make eye contact. And so I think moving into the Healthy Hustlers, I probably underestimated how much I was craving that sense of community, and that has definitely been something that has allowed me to keep going, even on, the journey when I was recording podcasts in my laundry, in my Ugg boots, surrounded with dirty washing in a kid's nap. I would just make it happen because I did have this beautiful community that were diving into every episode and listening, which is so nice.
And they kind of keep you accountable at the same time. They're
People would
you're
message
creating
and be
it for them.
Is there an episode coming or an episode is late? I was like, it's coming, guys.
That's so funny though. Being and seeing and listening and observing all of these different sort of wellness paths people take, is there one wellness rule that you think that we should unapologetically break?
That it has to look a certain way. I think I got really trapped in this in the early days, and it's actually been a big identity piece that I've needed to move through, because in my younger years, early 20s, I loved having a good time. I loved going out and partying, going to music festivals. And then when I got into my health and wellness, and I should say I was very much raised on a foundation of good health. So good food, my mum never gave us treats or sugar or anything. So
mine didn't either.
Yeah, I know. It sucked then, but I'm so grateful for it now. So when I restarted to, I guess, inject this healthier lifestyle and really nurture my health, there was moments in my wellness journey that I felt like a real fraud, because I was like, so-and-so knows me as this girl that used to party and go out and have a really good time. And I had this real identity battle with it for a long time. And it wasn't until, I think got a lot deeper into my personal development journey and, understood myself on a deeper level, I realized that I'm like, there's actually no rules to how that needs to look. Like wellness can come in all different shapes and sizes. And it also can look really different in different seasons of life. Pre-kids, I had the income and the freedom to buy all organic and cook every meal from scratch and take my lunch to work and, meal prep. And then I had 2 kids and a husband that worked long hours. And it was all of a sudden I was like, well, healthy, ready to go meals are what is keeping me going right now. And, I am making a choice on ones that are as clean as possible and have the best ingredients. But, once upon a time that would never have been an option. I would have just been like, oh, ready to go meals. Yeah, right. But there was a season in my life that is what wellness looked like and what health looked like. And I think that made me really realize that there's actually no rules to it. It's really about what is going to help you thrive in the season of life that you're actually in and what can make you, be your best.
The flip side of it, I guess, is if you are so stressed out about making sure everything is a certain way,
totally,
that can be impactful on health as well, not in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. And I went through that journey a little bit with my son. He had a lot of food intolerances and I was really sleep deprived and went down a big road of just kind of medication and things that were very out of alignment. And then I had to then I kind of came out of that, found a really good nutritionist and, started work. But I went down that darker path of everything having to be perfect and overcomplicating meals almost and figuring out is he getting enough nutrients? And I'm like, that's just as suffocating in itself when I'm like that. Whether now I'm like, you can have a healthy meal. I've made it. You can have pancakes for dinner, but I know I've made them and they're really healthy.
Right.
And that's fine, I think just letting go sometimes of what it needs to look like and the expectation that we place on ourselves and actually just asking yourself what fits with my season of life right now? What do I have capacity to do? What feels good? What's going to help me thrive?
How hard are we on ourselves though?
So hard.
I think often we do what we need to do at that moment in time and you're sitting here saying, I did this and it was kind of not in alignment. But at some point we've also got to surrender to keeping ourselves one foot in front of the other.
Totally.
And we have access to so many options, but maybe it's being able to just bring your head above water so you can eventually lead yourself back to where you were or whatever feels like the best alignment.
Definitely.
But that would have felt hard.
I see a huge disconnect with the medical system and the health world, really. And so I was feeling super conflicted because I was in a space, talking about my son, I guess, but that journey, I was in a space where I was a super sleep deprived mum. My son was going through all of these food intolerances and, he had a hernia removed at 8 weeks. I had no idea what I was kind of doing, but I knew the path that I was on felt really disaligned because he was getting prescribed these, heavy steroid creams and medications that I'm like, this baby's body should not be having this. But I also knew at that time, I'm like, but these people are professionals and I'm not a professional. I was trusting that with it also feeling disaligned. So it was almost trying to find this middle ground again of okay, I still need to trust in that because there's going to be moments that I need that. But I also need to find a way that feels more in alignment with me so that if we do have to rely on, say, steroids or that sort of stuff for his health, I know I've done everything in my power from a more holistic approach to avoid that from happening. So, my struggle was with the disconnect and I had doctors, people say to me well, you can't trust a nutritionist, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, but I really believe that food is medicine. It really can help us and fix us.
Or you do trust your nutrition. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's who you trust.
Totally.
But also, at what point did you have the courage to lean into your intuition around that?
Yeah.
And again, I don't believe our intuition, especially as mothers, is ever wrong.
Yeah, totally
Yet,
agree.
we can be persuaded to do things that maybe aren't in alignment.
Yeah.
And I would say in my experience of watching and being a mother myself, but watching a lot of mothers also as a practitioner, finding that it was they will always say, I should have trusted my gut.
And I think that's the point I got to. Like, I remember having this real moment where I was like, whoa, this is so far removed from how I would have ever expected myself or thought that I would manage or handle this situation. How can I just pull it in a little bit, just trust that intuition a little bit more? And that actually started with just getting a nutritionist. And then we had results from that. So it was almost that confidence again to be like, okay, maybe I can go a little bit further with this and I can trust this a little bit more. And the more that you start to build that evidence that your intuition is actually leading you in the right place, it's exactly what you say. As a mum, it actually never fails you.
Right.
But sometimes we just need those little pieces of evidence to give us the confidence to keep moving towards those intuitive pulls.
I had a great quote, and I'm going to probably mishmash it, but it was something about health shouldn't be a debate. It really should be what you want to do at the end of the day. Why are we often it's I don't believe it should be a this or a that.
Yeah.
It's just how you choose to actually follow your path. But how often do we find ourselves feeling like we're conflicted? Sometimes when we're sleep deprived, I don't know how smart we are. And I think that's where the variables can happen, or we can make decisions that actually aren't in alignment. But that doesn't mean that we can't redecide or reconsider or, reassess the situation at some point in time.
Yeah, and I think it's like now I really try to not let myself hold any guilt. All I was, and, on that journey, my son has been diagnosed since with asthma, and we had a really scary experience with that. And I remember being in the hospital and just saying to myself, I need to know next time this happens that I've done everything in my power that is in alignment and listen to my intuition. If we get into this point again, at least I know I've given everything that I believe is right to do a try. And, we are doing those more holistic things now, and I don't want to jinx anything, but it's going really well.
But I think what you get to do is you get to continue to build the foundation.
Definitely.
We've got a lot of we've got access to great things that help a symptom, but when we come back in and we build the foundation, the symptoms become less and less.
Yes.
And it's less of a reactive approach, but it is scary, especially first times of anything like that when you don't know. And it's all relative.
I remember almost giving myself permission for it to feel really hard too. Like, this is allowed to feel hard, and it's allowed to feel not fair, and it's allowed, these moments of just giving myself permission to, because it was also new to me and I hadn't experienced that as a mum either.
We're all learning too. Kids, they don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially first time around the block. Second time, third time, fourth child, I don't know. I don't have 4 children. I only have 2. But I imagine.
Totally. You're a super mum.
At that point, I think they just take care of each other, don't they?
So true. I actually remember a quote a friend said to me when I was just expressing to her a few things that I'm like, I'm really big on reflection. I'm really big on self-reflection. So, and I said to her, I just feel like sometimes I have these expectations, and then certain things in motherhood or maybe decisions I made haven't met up to that. And she said to me, have you ever heard the quote that expectations are literally the thief of joy? And I was like, no, I haven't, but I really like that. And that is so true in my motherhood journey.
I think that's very important. I tend to joke about myself because I have no expectations, and sometimes it's just not something that's even occurs to me, right?
Yes.
So someone will say, oh, I went and watched that movie. It was terrible. I expected, and I'm like, am I that like daft that I don't have any expectations, that I'm like, oh, we were expecting more, were we? But I actually have to say, upon reflection, I never have expectations. And maybe it does make life, I don't know how else to live. But I think because I don't, I don't know. Yeah. I can fully say to you, try it on.
Yeah. No, and I love that and I really think that it would be such a more enjoyable process for you.
Well, I just kind of go, I don't have expectations on people. Yeah. Like, I don't have expectations of situations. Is it because I'm just bland? I don't know.
No.
But I actually don't. I really don't. And I find it I used to really struggle when people used to say I've got expectations, to be like, oh, hang on a minute, am I supposed to have an expectation here? It's just something I don't have. I have plenty of other things that are challenges, but
I love that.
You know, it's quite interesting.
It is, and I actually really learned this on my first trip when I went to Europe when I was 21. So like, you know, all those years of you finish high school, saving for my first big Europe trip, went overseas with my best friend, and the expectation, like it was so high. Like this was going to be the most life-changing trip ever. And I remember and I kept a journal. So I actually have looked back on that. And like 1 week into the trip, it's just like, it had not met one bit of those expectations yet. And it was such a huge lesson for me at 21 to be like, remove the expectations. And I feel like from a life perspective and for my 20s, I really did. Like I removed every expectation and I just fully lived for the moment. And it's like the joy then after that trip that came with traveling and my career and the circles that I got myself in, I was like, this is just so abundant all of the time. But unfortunately, I didn't apply that when it came to motherhood. And motherhood was one of those things that I always saw myself as a mum. And I think I always had this expectation of what it would look like and what it would feel like, whether I never saw myself as a career woman or the person that had this like super thriving, fulfilling career. So all of a sudden I had no expectation here and this was feeling so good, but I had all this expectation here and it was feeling so hard. So
interesting.
I think it's beautiful that you live without that. Yeah.
I don't know. I never you know, you don't know what you don't know until you actually start to go, hang on, what are we expecting? What am I missing? Is there nothing in here? Like, I don't know. But I want to know what's next for you. What's lighting you up right now? I know you're kind of back podcasting again. More of that. Coaching, tell us.
I think at the moment a big thing that's coming through, well, one I spoke about like nurturing my internal world, but it's really just leaning a bit more into the fun and joy of my work. I think last year, coming out of a few years deep in motherhood and rebuilding my business, I was like hyper focused on like strategy and the way things needed to look. And this year I'm like, let's just have fun. Like, let's just let it flow. And that feels really good for me. And I feel like that was the intention that I originally set out for when I started the Healthy Hustlers. And the first few years were just so abundant and so much fun. And I'm like, I want to get back to that. So that's a bit of what this year is. And I think it feels nice to have the kids at a stage, you know, I'm a school mum now. My capacity to hold things is a lot stronger, which is really cool to see and to experience. So I think I'm just leaning into that tiny bit more sense of freedom and the ability to just have fun and joy with my work and my life, my social life. And yeah.
Wait till they're both at school.
I know, I can't even imagine.
Oh, I'll tell you. When both kids went both when Geordie started school, Livy went back to school. That's first, you know, January, whenever that was, several years ago now. I wondered whether or not I would be sad.
Yes.
But I remember going up to the clinic afterwards because the kids' school was close by to the clinic at that stage, and the girls were waiting. They're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I feel like I have just got a piece of myself back. I am more than fine right now. So good. Like just that piece of yourself, you do get that back, and just being able to concentrate on, you know, one thing and get it done before, or, you know, whilst they're at school. You're not going to know yourself.
The first 5 years with Georgia, I feel like I've just blinked, and it's like, I'm like, wow, I wished for you to be at school for so long and now you're here. And I'm like, oh, okay.
And now it really speeds up.
Experience that again. Yeah. It definitely does already feel like that little bit of even being able to come here today and do this. Like it feels like that little piece of me again, which is such a beautiful feeling.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to be here. Thank you for being in the other seat today and letting me ask you the questions, not the other way around.
Thank you for
this has been so great.
I really appreciate you having me. And I just love seeing, what you're doing with the podcast and all the success it's having. It's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.